Working alone in the wilderness never scared me until the day I realized I wasn't actually alone. I've been a freelance land surveyor for around 15 years. Most of my work takes me into remote areas, places where you won't see another person for days. Honestly, I used to prefer it that way. The silence, the isolation, it felt peaceful. At least it did before this happened. This took place about 4 years ago, when I was assigned to survey boundary markers in a mountainous region near Clearwater, Idaho. It was one of those jobs where just getting there is a challenge. I had to hike nearly 6 miles just to reach the location where I planned to camp. As always, I filed my route with the local ranger station and packed enough supplies for a full week. The first day went smoothly. I found a few markers, recorded everything, and made it back to camp before dark. The weather forecast had mentioned light snow, nothing serious, and at first that's exactly what it was. But by the second day, things started to change. The snowfall became heavier than expected. The next marker I needed to check was only about a mile away, so I made a decision I still regret to this day. Instead of turning back, I kept going. The terrain was already dangerous, hidden rocks, uneven ground, and now everything was covered in fresh snow and ice. I was moving carefully, step by step, trying not to lose my footing. But it only takes one mistake. My boot hit a patch of ice I didn't see, and suddenly I was sliding down a slope. I dropped about 15 feet before I managed to grab onto a tree root and stop myself. The moment I tried to stand up, pain shot through my ankle. I knew right away it was bad. Putting weight on it was difficult, and I could tell it would take hours before I could even walk properly again. At that point, the job didn't matter anymore. I decided to head back to camp immediately. The hike back was slow and painful. A few minutes in, I noticed something strange. There were footprints on the trail ahead of me. That wasn't unusual by itself. People do pass through these areas sometimes. Hunters, workers, hikers. But these prints looked fresh, even though it had been snowing. I assumed someone else was nearby and didn't think much of it. But then I started hearing something. At first, it sounded like normal forest noise, wind, branches shifting, maybe an animal moving through the trees. But the more I listened, the more it sounded like footsteps behind me. Every time I stopped walking, the sound stopped too. Not instantly. There was always a slight delay, like whoever it was took an extra step or two before freezing. I turned around several times, trying to see through the dense trees, but there was nothing there. No movement, no person, nothing. I told myself I was imagining it and kept moving, but then the sound came back. This time it was clearer, and then I heard something else, a faint metallic noise coming from somewhere off to my left, like metal lightly hitting metal. That didn't make any sense. There shouldn't have been anything like that out there. I stopped again and looked around more carefully. That's when I realized something that made my stomach drop. The footprints I had been following were gone. I looked around frantically, trying to see where they had gone, whether they turned or split off, but I couldn't find anything. Then I saw it. Another set of footprints, not on the trail, but moving through the trees, running parallel to me. Whoever had been ahead of me was now walking beside me. At that point, I was genuinely scared. I should have stayed quiet and just kept moving, but instead I called out, asking if anyone was there. No response. Just silence. After waiting a few seconds, I started moving again, faster this time, ignoring the pain in my ankle as much as I could. I was close to my campsite now. I kept telling myself that once I got there, I'd be fine. Then I heard a loud crack behind me, a heavy branch snapping. That was enough. I didn't look back again. I made it to my campsite just as it got completely dark. I rushed inside my tent, but the moment I sat down, I realized something. That thin layer of fabric wasn't going to protect me from anything. I started packing immediately, planning to leave right then and there. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Right outside my tent. They weren't rushing. They weren't random. They were slow, deliberate, and circling around me. I froze. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't run, couldn't fight, not with my ankle in that condition. All I could do was wait. The footsteps circled my tent for what felt like forever, and then suddenly stopped. Complete silence. I didn't wait to find out what that meant. I finished packing, took a deep breath, and unzipped the tent. The moment I stepped outside and looked toward the trees, I saw him. A man standing at the edge of the tree line. He looked old, extremely thin, almost sickly. There was something seriously wrong about the way he looked, but I couldn't explain it. We just stood there, staring at each other. I raised my hand slightly and said, "I don't want any trouble." For a few seconds, he didn't respond. Then finally, he spoke. "You're a lucky man." That's all he said. And then he turned and walked back into the woods. Just like that. I didn't wait around. I packed everything and left immediately, not caring that it was pitch dark. Later, I found out I had severely sprained my ankle. They even said it was surprising I managed to walk on it at all. I reported what happened, but nothing ever came of it. No one was found. No explanation. I still work in remote areas. It's my job. But ever since that day, I never camp alone in the winter anymore. Because whatever was out there that night, I don't think it was just passing through. We had done this route before, without a single problem. But this time, something out there was waiting, and I don't think it wanted us to leave. I've lived most of my life in Alaska. My family moved to Fairbanks when I was young, and over time the wilderness just became normal to me. Harsh winters, long stretches of isolation, it never really bothered me. By my early 20s, I was working as a wilderness guide. I knew how to handle extreme conditions, how to navigate, how to survive. Or at least, I believed I did. This happened about 3 years ago. At the time, I was with my boyfriend, Randy. He was experienced, very experienced, especially when it came to winter travel. We had done several backcountry trips together, and we were always careful. This trip was supposed to be easy. We planned to snowmobile between 2 remote cabins about 60 miles apart, stay a night at each, then head back home. Simple. We had done the exact same trip before. No problems. The weather forecast looked clear when we left, but overnight, everything changed. I woke up to the sound of wind howling outside. When I stepped out, I realized we were in the middle of a full-blown blizzard. Visibility was terrible. Snow was coming down fast, and the wind made it even worse. We had enough supplies to stay. We should have stayed. But instead, we decided to move. Randy took the lead, and I followed behind him, tracking his path through the snow. It was difficult, but manageable. For a while. Then, without warning, everything went wrong. One moment he was moving forward, the next, his snowmobile flipped over. I rushed to him immediately, but as soon as I got close, I knew it was bad. His leg was twisted in a way it shouldn't be. I tried to help him up, tried to get him onto my snowmobile so I could take him back. It didn't work. He was too heavy, too injured, and the terrain made it nearly impossible. Every attempt only caused him more pain. After a second try, he stopped me. That's when reality hit. We both knew what had to happen. I had to leave him there. I pulled out the satellite phone, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I managed to send a distress signal, but I wasn't sure if it went through. We couldn't depend on it. So I wrapped him in every extra layer we had, made him as protected as possible, and marked our location on my GPS. Then I left, alone, riding through a storm that made it almost impossible to see. At first, I focused on staying on track, but after a while, something felt off. The terrain didn't look familiar. The route didn't feel right. It was like I was drifting away from where I was supposed to be. And then I saw it. Smoke, rising through the trees. I turned toward it immediately, thinking it was one of the cabins. But when I got closer, it wasn't. This place was different. Smaller, older, half buried in snow. Still, smoke meant someone was there, and someone meant help. I walked up to the door and knocked. No response. I tried the handle. It opened. Inside, it was warm. A fire was burning. There was a bedroll on the floor and a half-eaten can of food nearby. Whoever was there had just left. I called out. Nothing. I should have walked away right then, but I didn't. I stepped inside, trying to warm up for just a moment, trying the satellite phone again. No signal. Then I noticed something. A map, folded on a shelf. I opened it and instantly felt uneasy. Certain areas were circled, places I recognized, including the cabins we had been using. Next to them were dates, different dates, going back a long time. Then I found a notebook, and that's when everything changed. Inside were detailed notes, descriptions of people, what they were wearing, where they were heading. It didn't take long to understand. Someone had been watching people out here, tracking them, possibly for years. My heart started racing. I didn't want to read anymore. I turned toward the door, and then I heard it. A scream, loud, terrifying, coming from below me, from under the floor. It wasn't words, just pure panic, like someone was trapped, or worse. I didn't think. I ran. I rushed out of that cabin, jumped on my snowmobile, and rode as fast as I could. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I just kept going until I finally reached the real cabin and managed to contact rescue. They sent a team out. They found Randy. He was barely alive, but he survived. After that, I reported everything: the cabin, the notebook, the scream. They said they would investigate. A few days later, they told me they found nothing. No cabin, no structure, nothing at all. They even suggested I might have imagined it, that the storm confused me. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard, because there are only a few possibilities. Either none of it was real, or it was real, and I left someone behind in that place. Or worst of all, that cabin was never meant to be found, and whoever or whatever was inside was waiting for someone like me to walk in. I thought I was going on a simple hike with a girl I liked, but by the end of it, I wasn't sure if she ever intended for me to come back. When I was in my junior year of high school, there was this girl I couldn't stop thinking about. Her name was Sienna. She wasn't like anyone else. Yeah, she was attractive, but it wasn't just that. There was something distant about her. Cold, almost. She didn't smile much, didn't talk much, and most people kept their distance. But for some reason, I was drawn to her. There was this quiet intensity about her that I couldn't explain, the kind that makes you curious, even when you probably shouldn't be. I used to write a lot back then, mostly random stories, and I even named one of my characters after her. One day, I was talking to my friend about it at school, joking around, when she suddenly walked past us. She heard her name. She stopped, looked right at me, and smirked. Then she said something like, "What, you in love with me or something?" I was completely caught off guard. My friends started laughing, which made it worse. But before she could walk away, I did something I still don't fully understand. I asked her out. She stopped again, looked at me in a way that made me feel like I had just made a huge mistake. And then she said yes, just like that. She gave me her number, said she'd text me, and walked off before I could even respond. A few days later, she planned everything. Not me, her. She picked the place, the time, everything. It was a hiking trail about 45 minutes outside town. I had never been there before, and honestly, I didn't question it. I was just excited she said yes. The day came, and she drove us there. The whole ride felt surreal. She had the window down, music playing, stuff I didn't recognize. She didn't say much, but it didn't feel awkward. When we got there were only a couple of cars in the parking lot. Then she just started walking. No hesitation. I followed. At first, everything felt normal. We talked a little. She even asked about the story I was writing, which surprised me. But after about 20 minutes, things started to feel different. The trail got narrower. The trees got thicker, and we stopped seeing other people. Eventually, we reached a fork in the trail. I asked her which way to go. She pointed left immediately, didn't even think about it. I asked if she had been there before. She said no. That didn't sit right with me, but I ignored it. The left path was rough, less maintained, almost like people didn't use it much. At some point, she motioned for me to walk ahead, so I did. The path got so narrow we were walking single file. I assumed she was right behind me. But then, I noticed something. I couldn't hear her footsteps anymore. I stopped, turned around. She was gone. Just gone. No sound, no movement, nothing. I called her name. No answer. I walked back toward the fork, thinking maybe she turned around or stopped somewhere. But she wasn't there either. At that point, I started getting uneasy. There were no side trails, no clear way she could have just disappeared like that. So I tried the other path. It was even worse. Overgrown, barely a trail at all. Still, I kept calling her name. Then, I heard something. A branch snapping, off to my left. I looked over and saw movement behind a tree. For a second, I actually felt relieved. I thought it was her messing with me, so I decided to play along. I walked toward the tree quietly and jumped out to scare her. But the moment I did, I realized it wasn't her. It was a man. Tall, middle-aged, just standing there, staring at me. I froze. I stepped back, trying to explain that I was just looking for my friend. He didn't respond. He just started walking toward me. That's when I turned and started heading back toward the trail, trying not to panic. Then, I heard something else, from the other side. I looked right and saw another man standing there, watching me, holding what looked like a thick branch. That's when instinct took over. I ran. I didn't care where I was going, I just ran. Through trees, branches hitting my face, barely able to see where I was stepping. And then I heard it. Both of them running after me, not hiding anymore, not quiet, just chasing. I ran as fast as I could, but the ground was uneven, the trees too close together. And then suddenly, something grabbed my ankle. I fell hard. One of them was on me instantly, trying to pin me down. I panicked, kicked, struggled, did anything I could. Somehow, I got free. I don't even know how. I got up and ran again. Didn't look back, didn't stop. I just kept running until I finally reached the main trail and then the parking lot. My chest felt like it was going to explode. Sienna's car was still there, but she wasn't. The other cars were gone. That's when a new fear hit me. What if they got her? What if she was still out there? I called her phone over and over. No answer. I was just about to call the police when I saw her, walking out of the trees, completely calm, like nothing happened. I yelled at her to hurry, trying to explain everything. She didn't seem scared, not even a little. If anything, she seemed annoyed. We got in the car and left. I told her everything. She barely reacted. Then I asked her where she had gone. She said she thought I walked ahead and she was trying to catch up. That didn't make sense. I had gone back to the fork. There's no way I would have missed her. That's when something clicked. The trail she chose, the direction she picked, letting me walk ahead and then disappearing right before those two men showed up. It didn't feel random anymore. It felt planned. The drive back was silent, tense. I kept looking at her, wondering if I ever really knew her at all. She dropped me off like nothing happened. We never spoke again. And to this day, I still can't decide what's worse, that it was all just a coincidence, or that she led me out there, knowing exactly what was waiting for me.